I think I've always kind of seen myself as an artist, even as a little kid. I think my mom would find me drawing Sunday comics or stuff like Garfield or all that good stuff, and I would just be copying it and everything and having a lot of fun with that. And I always found that I'm a very visual thinker, so it just came a little naturally to me. I grew up in a Trekkie household. I grew up with my parents taking me to science fiction conventions, meeting all of my favorite science fiction authors. I hated reading when I first was taught, and I hated all those children's books. I felt them really boring. And then my mom handed me a book called The Dragon Horde. When I was a kid, I was enthralled by it because, frankly, I also like shiny things, and there was a lot of talk about jewels and diamonds and diamond-encrusted jewels and stuff. And it was fascinating to me, and it immediately got me hooked into the science fiction fantasy like world. I found out like halfway through high school. I was just sitting there thinking, and it was between writing, which I'm actually terrible at, or drawing, which I'm actually have a little bit of a natural ability for. So I told my parents, who, you know, my mom's a doctor and my dad's a computer software engineer, and they're very math and science oriented people, that I wanted to go to art school. And my mom was all on board because she also had a creative streak, and my dad was also kind of horrified. He wanted a more balanced education, and after going to art school, it's true there wasn't very much balance in that education, but I do not regret it. It was the best decision I made. It was actually almost right out of college that I went from feeling amateur to professional. When I first graduated from Pratt, which is the school that I went to, these people who had seen me in a survey show that they put on for graduating seniors, they saw my work in the show, and they contacted me afterwards, and it was a small video game company called This Is Pop, and they make a lot of really fun, quirky games for Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and everything for the web. And they approached me, and I did a test for them, and I got an internship there, and it very quickly turned into a full-time job because I really couldn't afford to live here on internship money. Once I started doing that work for them, and I was doing artwork for their video games and everything, it really felt like I had moved from just wanting to be an artist when I grew up to actually doing something with it, and it was really satisfying. When I put my artwork up in shows, people who were fans of my work would come up to me and they'd be like, "Oh, can you draw like this character or that character? Why don't you ever do any fan art? And I would love to see Batman in your style. I would love to see this character in your style." And I think it's awesome, and I love the idea of doing it, and I doodle that stuff all the time because it's a lot of fun. But I don't think that it's something that I could ever put up in a show or a gallery and make it where it would be mine. So what I wanted to do was eventually, because people ask me, I wanted to create a series of paintings where I was taking someone else's intellectual property, and I would just turn it on its head and I would do a little satire of it. And I was trying to figure out what to do, and I was doodling a picture of Mario, and I just happened to make him naked so I could figure out the shape of his body, because I was playing with proportions. And my boyfriend walked up and was just like, "No, that's hilarious, do that." And so I drew Mario naked, and then I painted him, and it was so wonderful that I thought it was so hilarious that I started doing Link and Samus. And I did them, and I brought them to my show as like a little triptych, as a little show. And they were so popular, and people loved them so much, they sold immediately. I didn't want them to be sexual, I wanted them to be silly, I wanted them to be whimsical, but also have a little bit of that dark nightmare kind of feel to it, where they're in a dream, they're out doing their video game thing. Mario's out trying to rescue the princess, Princess Peach is gardening, I don't know. Link is out trying to rescue the princess, Bowser's out trying to kill Mario, and they look down and they realize halfway through that they're naked. Kind of like when you go to work and you realize you're naked, then you wake up. And that's that moment of realization, that look of sheer embarrassment of being naked that I tried to capture with these characters. I think if you want to see Mario getting plowed by someone, or really sexualized hyper sexy versions of these characters. There's the internet already is like bloated with it. The Inner Demon series is like, that's what I'm really passionate about. For the past few years I've been just trying to develop it and explore this one theme in as many different ways as possible. So it's a dark thing, but it's also something that really, really like connects with me. There's a lot of, everyone has inner demons or neuroses or just, you know, little nervous tics that really make you unique. It's what actually makes everybody unique. It kind of got started when I was in the subway system, and what I was doing for a while before the shakiness of subways kind of drove me nuts was that I would try to draw as many people as possible in the subway. It's pretty typical of what illustrators will do, or artists, because you get so many models that are either just sitting there not noticing that you're drawing them, but they're also just not moving. And I was at the Essex stop on the J train. I was waiting for the F because it's where they connected, and it was taking an hour. The F train is terrible. And right next to me was this woman, and she was standing there, and she looked like a bag lady, but not a bag lady. She was surrounded by brown paper bags, but they were all filled with what appeared to be completely normal groceries. But then she was also wearing like 6 skirts and 5 jackets. She was puffed out. It was crazy, and she had this world-weary expression on her face, just staring off, and it was this, she looked worried. She looked like she was dreading something. And she was really fascinating. I really was kind of taken aback by her, because you don't usually see that kind of mix. So I just decided, since I had so much time, I was going to sketch her. So I started drawing her, and I drew her, I got as much as I could into her, of her character. And then I started just as a lark, just drawing this giant squid monster, a grinning squid monster behind her, just kind of creeping up behind her. And kind of as a representation of her dread. And then I decided that, you know what, this is something that is great, and I really wanted to explore it. And I'd always had that fascination. So I took that idea, and I moved on it, and I went off and I started doing other ones as well. There's fight or flight, that inner demon, that feeling that you have when you're on the cusp of something, and you are just about to do it. Like the painting that I used to depict that climactic moment is, there's these 2 guys that are about to kiss, and their lips are just millimeters apart, and out of the back of one of the guy's heads is just this explosion of bird parts. You have feathers and eyes and beaks, and they're all kind of screeching. I guess I'm kind of a sexual person. I think that everyone kind of shows their, like, you know, a piece of themselves in their artwork. If you're not, then you're probably just imitating someone else. I tend to find that if the audiences are older, my artwork is received a lot less positively. But like anywhere from like middle-aged crowds to younger crowds, my artwork is gaining a lot of traction. People tend to really be drawn to it. I think it's just a generational thing. I noticed it like just over the course of the last several years, going to more and more costumed events. It's just more and more people are doing it. There's a higher percentage of people, and I think it's just because we're kind of embracing it and we're having a lot of fun, and I think we're getting really creative with it. It was a little fetishy. I mean, on Thursday and Friday I wore my Sora costume, and then Saturday I wore my Mario costume. And the Sora costume actually has a harness, well, actually this harness attached. You know, it was so that it would keep the jacket in check. And people, I mean, this doesn't look like a normal harness. People didn't recognize it as that, especially when it was part of the jacket. But yeah, there was definitely like, I tried to sex up the clothing as much as possible because it's fun. Although, like, I swear, like, he never showed his, like, you couldn't see his dick through that skin-tight stuff. That was always something that kind of, like, was confusing to me. Although there were a couple Supermen at Comic-Con that were obviously not wearing underwear. Well, yeah, it's always been sexy. It's always been crazy. I mean, it's been more slanted towards sexualizing women in fantasy and science fiction for the longest time. You know, chicks in chainmail and all that. But, you know, I think that as gay culture has become more mainstream, as the idea of male beauty has become more and more prominent in even the straight community, we've seen, I'm starting to see more and more sexualization of men, and I love it, obviously. I just accidentally came across this, the line for getting a signature, and I was just like, I'm gonna do this because I hope he likes my costume. And he picked me out. He was just like, I was halfway down the line. He was just like, see you, which was hilarious. And when I got up there for the first time, I was in the Sora costume, and he felt me up, which was really awesome. I dropped my sword on the ground, and he went underneath the table to try, and like he was like, oh, let me pick that up for you. And he came up and he grabbed my crotch, which, you know, it's like, it's Captain Jack, and he is Captain Jack. And then, and I thought that was done. But then I was in my Mario costume the next day, which had even less clothing, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do this again. I'm not gonna get my signature, but I think he'll appreciate it, him and his husband. This time, he comes around from out back, and he grabs me from behind, he grabs my crotch, and he takes a picture with his iPad. I think his husband was taking the picture. And then he told me he was going to post it on Tumblr. He never did, but I can understand. It was kind of a racy photo. But luckily, some woman who was working there also snapped a picture from the side, and she texted it to me, so I was able to at least have some evidence that this amazing thing happened.